What does Japan know about getting dressed that we don't? I went to Japan for the first time in May, and as I was walking down the streets, I saw kids, office workers, grandparents dressing way cooler than anything I've ever seen on Pinterest. So I spent the next 2 weeks of my trip shooting all the cool street style I saw and trying to figure out why. At first I thought Japanese people just had a natural sense of style. They must be born with it, but that is not true. As I was scripting the video that you're watching right now, I did a lot of research, not AI research. I saw video essays, read articles, interviews. I saw time and time again how the Japanese didn't invent the hoodie or jeans or the blazer, but they still became one of the most influential fashion places on the planet. So I developed a theory, which is that their culture raises them to pay attention to things that we don't even notice. This philosophy is rooted in their way of living, the way that houses are built, the way the education system is set up, everything surrounding them, so inevitably fashion as well. So let me take you on my investigation, how to look effortlessly better without paying any attention to money, brands, or luxury items. Now, quick disclaimer, I just want to say that usually my videos are way more straight to the point, practical tips, useful things you will instantly take out and apply to your life, and this will not be one of those videos. I really want to make this a conversation, and I want to explore the historical backgrounds, and if you're looking for practical style advice, I have a whole library that you can check out after. Chapter number 1. If I had to describe their fashion once I got there at first, it would be that it's super clean. It's very put together, which doesn't mean it's boring, but their go-to silhouettes and the shapes that they're pairing feel really, really balanced 99% of the time. It transmits this idea of, I know what I'm doing and I know what's enough, and I'm applying that. The Japanese have this aesthetic philosophy called ma, and it's frequently misunderstood as white space or empty space, but I think a better way to communicate it would be meaningful space. It's technically about pauses, gap, knowing where to not have things, but those gap spaces are still spaces. They're just meaningfully thought out spaces. It's the intervals between things, pauses that give certain things more meaning because they have room to breathe. In fashion, it could be something as random as your coat being flowy and leaving some space between it and the body as you walk. I don't want to get too abstract and trying to get tips out of these philosophies that are way too intellectualized and no one's going to bring into their lives in a practical way. So let's just keep going. This doesn't mean that they don't layer. This doesn't mean that they're anti-maximalist. I think the Japanese are really good at layering and really good at approaching both minimalism and maximalism in fashion. It's just about this constant dance between inserting things and taking things out. Now, I will say I was initially planning on doing one of my typical street style interviews where I talk to people, but the language barrier was a bit bigger than I thought it would be, and honestly, I didn't do as much preparation with the scripts or the questions I was answering in terms of translating them to Japanese as I probably should have done. I feel like people were a little more introverted, and I hate feeling like I'm inconveniencing anyone, so I ended up not actually interviewing the people on camera. I just have little vertical videos of them, but I thought I would still insert them in the video so that we can see actual examples. See, this girl's pairing a flowy dress with a pair of jeans, but the flowiness of the dress with the not too bagginess of the pants creates this very flowy outfit that has both light, soft textures of the dress and the thicker texture of the denim that still looks pretty light. Same with this couple. He has less things on, but the contrast between the top and the bottom give enough interest to the outfit. And then the girl's adding a bunch of layers all in the same color palette to give it a bit more cohesiveness. And I don't think they're thinking about this rationally when they're putting the outfit together. Again, two flowy outfits that have two longer pieces. One of the jeans is tucked on the boots, the other one isn't. The shoes really tie everything together. Pops of color. So cute. A shirt under a shirt, baseball cap with feminine boots with skirt. Fashion, as I was saying, is not something that lives isolated in a bubble. It's again a big reflection of culture and surroundings, and I found Japan to be the cleanest place I've ever been on earth. You've probably heard this, but truly, I would go to a public bathroom in the middle of a street, an open bathroom to the public, a bathroom you don't pay to pee in, and it will smell like it was cleaned 5 minutes ago. It will be so neat. They really prioritize hygiene. They really know how to take care of shared spaces. There's no trash bins in the street because you're meant to carry your trash with you. and then put it in your trash bin at home. I've heard that in a lot of places there's no people like actually cleaning the streets because everyone is responsible for cleaning the part of the street in front of their house. What this tells me is that compared to other countries, they're better at preventing things so that they don't have to fix them later on. Things are functional, there's systems in place, and you can see that functionality transmit into the fashion as well. While as in other countries, I might have seen layering that doesn't work for walking long distances in the street because the lengths are too exaggerately long, and so you're constantly stepping on your jeans, or the shoes are too high. Whenever I saw, and you're seeing it right now on screen, layering being done, it was always being done in a way that doesn't get in the way of your day-to-day activities. Being in Japan got me thinking about the whole nature versus nurture conversation. How much of who someone is due to how they grew up and what they were taught versus their genetic predisposition. And this is because I would look at certain rules or ways of being in Japan and think about how great it would be if we implemented in my city. And I just come to the realization that even if we tried to implement those things here, they would not work. People would not start doing them just because someone would tell them to start doing them. On the other hand, and I made a video on Instagram recently, if we embrace our individuality and the power that each one of us has in our little actions, there is so much that can be made. And there are so many things that I brought home with me, even if it's sitting more on the floor when I'm doing activities. It's so great for my creativity. If you do live in Japan or you were born and raised in Japan, I would love to know any ways in which you think Japanese people get more lazy, because when I was there, everyone seemed so efficient, ready to help, doing their part without ever wanting to skip a day, you know what I mean? I'm just so curious. Now, chapter number 2, let's jump into the weird. The funky, the cool, because as much as they were put together, they were so creative and so imaginative. It leads into unexpected combinations. Tokyo's Fashion Week director once also told, I think it was Vogue or another magazine I read, I don't remember. It's the same thing with our food. We mix pasta with natto. It might sound weird, but it ends up being really good. Natto is like fermented soybeans. It's like the bases are already challenged. So even an outfit that could be boring from the start, the boring pieces were already made with such different or well thought out silhouettes that it's never gonna be boring. It's like they invest way more time into haircuts than hairstyles. I didn't see a lot of very exaggerated hairstyle, but I saw a lot of people with very funky haircuts. You might be wearing a very basic outfit, but if you have a very distinct haircut, you're gonna look great. It's not about complicating your habits. It's about making it easy for you to look great without having to put too much effort. I want to talk about Japan's fashion history, and I don't want to bore you. I did research very into the past, but I thought it might not be super relevant to include that in this video, so I just want to jump into the 90s. When I got to this part of my research was when I started realizing that maybe they don't have like an innate ability or something that they're born with. Japan has created a culture that has an eye for aesthetic sensibility. Harajuku is basically a district in Japan. In the 90s, its streets were closed to traffic, so this was a place where pedestrians could just hang out and mingle, and over time, it became a huge hub of street style. Thankfully, there was someone, a genius, a god, Steve Aoki. Pardon my huge brain misspell. It's definitely not Steve Aoki, it's Shuichi Aoki. That decided to start documenting what he saw. He thought people were dressing so cool, someone had to capture it. So he started candidly asking people simple questions and putting everything together on a magazine that would then be called Fruits. The spreads were mainly full-page photographs with a brief profile of the photographed person. Most issues included only a couple of advertisements, which is actually the reason why it didn't become super profitable over time and they had to close it eventually. Its last publication was in 2017. Fruits was basically like a Vogue or 17, but completely turned into street style. The photos did all the talking. And this might sound simple, but this, you guys, was a democratization of style. Why? Because before Fruits, people turned to style inspiration that came from the runway, that came from luxury brands, because those were the only things being photographed. We didn't have social media. People weren't posting outfit of the days. So having outfit of the days being used in content in media made it so that that street style started influencing high fashion instead of the opposite happening. Instead of people seeing the runway shows and the new trends and then applying them, the big designers started getting inspired, and these individuals with great expressive style and taking ideas out of them. And up until then, most fashion journalism was about huge bajillion-dollar campaigns and expensive products. Also, the trends in Japan before the 90s were very much about mimicking what was happening in the US and in Europe. Homegrown Japanese brands weren't seen as that cool, so this moment was really important for people to start valuing what they already had in their own country. I have so much respect for what Aoki did, because at a very smaller scale, that is sort of what I started doing with this channel 5 years ago. I think the majority of you who are subscribed don't actually know this, but I've been on YouTube for 10 years. So this channel has gone through many phases. At first, it was a 12, 13-year-old making videos about literally anything, and obviously no one cared about my what I ate in a day or my random vlogs. So I then niched into fashion, and when I did that, I moved to New York for a brief amount of time. And so I decided that since I didn't know anyone in New York and I didn't have a fancy set to film in, I would just film on the street. And I started going to fashion campuses of universities that I didn't go to. I was an imposter. And I would ask to interview the cool people that were super well dressed. Being on the street, approaching strangers with a camera. And at the time, I didn't even have a lot of subscribers, so I didn't even have like the reputation or the portfolio to show them, is scary. Anyways, going back to the topic, what's fun about Harajuku is that they did not see fashion as a way of following trends or signaling wealth. They saw it as an expression of art. People started mixing thrift finds with military surplus, designer and handmade pieces together. It could look chaotic, but if you looked closer, it was really intentional. He said it was interesting because street style would not enter the mass media at the time, because by the time that a designer or a publication would get onto what they were wearing, they had already moved on to something else. Everything was happening in real time. Another interpretation of Harajuku is that it normalized the idea that ordinary people could spend time refining how they presented themselves. You didn't need to be in a certain group, certain profession, place in the world, or have an occasion to look cool. They would dress cool to go on the streets and walk and have a coffee with their friends. Experimentation was encouraged, but unfortunately, once Harajuku started allowing traffic back into the neighborhood, that movement sort of disappeared because there wasn't that many people on the streets anymore because there were cars. Another magazine that appeared a bit before and also lasted longer, I think it's still published to this day, is Popeye. Popeye was all about teaching people proportions, materials, rules. Popeye was founded a bit before Harajuku and it still lasts till today. It's funny how these polar opposite moments were happening at the same exact time. Back then, it was about teaching young Japanese men how to live well. It covered a lot of American influences like the Ivy League style, surf culture, New York style, it boy, vintage Americana, and it dissected the details of those identities. The cut of an Oxford shirt, the fate of a pair of Levi's, the construction of a varsity jacket, or the history behind a military field coat. This is because after World War II, Japan experienced rapid economic growth and people gained greater access to international trends. Ironically, this careful appreciation exceeded America's appreciation of their own items. During the 80s and 90s, America started shifting into fast consumption and fast trends, but Japanese designers really honed into specific classic pieces, and they were the ones that preserved them. Vintage Levi's, Red Wing boots, Champion sweatshirts, military garments, and Ivy League staples. They were almost objects of study. In a way, I guess you can say that Japan saved American style. In many cases, Americans later rediscovered their own things through Japanese designers and collections and magazines. This shows how even though Japan didn't innovate a ton or invent the biggest pieces to this date, they have a great eye for knowing what's good and for making it even better. Japan's most famous designers in the past 50 years are proof of that. In the 80s, Yoho Yamamoto crafted oversized black coats and finished hams, asymmetric tailoring, loose silhouettes. Rei Kawakubo, founder of Comme des Garçons, questioned whether clothing even had to flatter the body. She introduced holes, deliberate tears, exposed seams, exaggerated proportions. Her famous 1996 collection, Body Meets the Dress, Dress Meets Body, featured padded garments that created bulges and unconventional places. She showed it doesn't have to be about how do we make people attractive, and instead we can ask, why do we think clothing has to make people attractive? And that is something that I love talking about on this channel in many very ways. Tied into all of this disruption, creativity, balance, we have the cherry on top of the cake because beyond the looks, we have the foundations. And Japanese clothes are just made of an obnoxiously good quality. The made in Japan is a gold standard in the fashion industry. In the middle of so much greenwashing and mislabeled products, people know they can trust the made in Japan. And I'm going to tie this to something else that happened in Japan that I experienced on my trip, which is they have no tipping. People are expected to give their best service without having to be encouraged to do so. And this just shows how they put in the effort. These high standards translate into clothing. Japanese manufacturers are known for perfecting every stitch. This ensures that the garments are not just beautiful, but durable. Traditional techniques such as shashiku, which is a form of decorative reinforcement stitching, and boro, the art of mending and patching, are still employed to this day, even in this super fast consumption world. There are so many rigorous quality assessments in their manufacturers. The fabrics are tested for durability and color fastness, while the finished products are checked for construction and fit. Also, because people know that the things are made with so much care, it also makes people respect those products more and not just see them as something they buy today and wear twice and then discard later. In Japan, people are not buying luxury items, and I'm talking very generally for status. If something is more expensive, they will expect it to be way better, way more durable. They even have a word for not wasting. It's called monatai.
It is not monatai, it is motainai. Could I not pronounce anything in this video? I'm so sorry.
Unfortunately or fortunately, importing things into Japan is also very expensive, which has encouraged them more to lean into their own designers and their own brands. The exchange rates have been declining. The yen has been losing a bit of its power. This, again, contributes to the distinct style because even though everything is influenced by what's happening in the world, they're actually wearing mostly Japanese things. To cover their good taking care of things in their repair culture, I have to talk about another philosophy, which is called wabi-sabi. At its core, wabi-sabi is an appreciation of imperfection, impermanence, and aging. Instead of asking, how do we make this look new forever, we ask, how can this become more beautiful as it ages? After the knees start to fade, most Western brands would say, these jeans are wearing out. But many Japanese denim makers would say, the jeans are becoming yours. It's what we call patina. You'll see it in faded indigo denim, worn leather, patched garments, natural wrinkles, uneven hand-dyed fabrics, visible repairs. Buying less, guys, will always be better than just buying from sustainable brands. Last but not least, this video is so long, but I just want to very quickly talk about comfort. Americans often prefer comfort or convenience over style. Loungewear has gotten extremely popular for wearing in the day-to-day, and I did not see anybody wearing loungewear in Japan, and I think most people that go to the gym just get changed before they get off the gym. I saw a few sweatpants, but they were always style and outfits that are way cooler than just your typical workout set. For going to Japan, quick note, I was a bit surprised with which areas I saw the best street style in. Amerikamura in Osaka and Shimokatazawa were my favorite ones, so those were the ones I would recommend. But yeah, if Papai teaches people to see, Harajuku teaches people to experiment, Made in Japan teaches people to value craftsmanship, Wabi-sabi teaches people how to appreciate age, we can get to the conclusion that Japan does not produce stylish people by accident. And that, my friends, is all I have for you. I also probably mispronounced so many words. I'm so sorry. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!